Welcome to another episode of This Is Why I Don't Vote, a podcast. Season 4, Episode 41. Your safe space to discuss sports, politics, social issues, and even religion, where we will take it all very seriously, but not too seriously. Back-to-back episodes of two idiots discuss sports. This time, a Major League Baseball Divisional Series breakdown with predictions. Will our predictions come true? You know they won't, but it'll be entertaining nonetheless. Thank you all to my loyal listeners. For those of you who are new to the podcast, please like, subscribe, thumbs up, 5-star, write a review, send to friends and enemies far and wide. You'll notice that there are no commercials on This Is Why I Don't Vote podcast. That's because no one wants to sponsor it. But you, dear listener, you can directly sponsor the podcast by going to one Patreon. That's right. This Is Why I Don't Vote podcast is on Patreon. Please consider supporting.
Act 1. Two idiots discuss sports, Major League Baseball Divisional Series, and predictions.
As promised, back on the podcast to do a divisional breakdown between the National League and American League teams, the final 8. One Brian, here also to send off in what has been a bittersweet season for him, the Atlanta Braves. Brian, say hello to the people.
Hello, people. Good evening, Mr. Knackley. As always, it is truly a pleasure. Unfortunately, as we get into the divisional series, we must say goodbye to one beloved Atlanta Braves, which you mentioned the words bittersweet season. There was nothing bittersweet about it. There was nothing sweet about it. It was bitter.
Well,
it was all bitter.
Considering the aspirations you had, yes, I could see that you would consider it a bitter season.
Oh, yeah. Like I mentioned last time, 6 innings with the starting lineup, 3 of your key players, your hopeful Cy Young winner in Spencer Strider going out after one game, catcher going out after one game, 6 innings, Ronald Acuna out with yet another ACL, not awesome. Austin Riley, all-star third baseman, out with another broken wrist due to another reliever who throws triple digits and yet control it and hits people in the sides of the heads and wrists. He's out for the season. It was not good. You know, we talked last, the Braves were going into game 2 of the wild card series. To be frank, it felt more like I was standing over a loved one who was on life support with feeding tube, and you are just waiting for the inevitable to be over. The Braves were never going to win the series. You know, you hope they get hot at some point in time, but the anemic offense that was there. Even as they brought in other folks, it wasn't working, wasn't going to work. Chris Sale, Alex Anthopoulos, the GM, and Brian Snitker, the manager, gave their postseason analysis Zoom call to reporters, positively said that Chris Sale's throwing and has no pain. Unfortunately, it's a week late.
Right.
But, it is what it is. You can't win them all. It was not an awesome season from an injury perspective. Actually, it was an awesome season considering the injuries they had, but this was not a team built to win anything significant. So over and out, I was not as sad as I would have been had they not made the playoffs. Like I said, it was like you're watching the inevitable. Just honestly get it over with. They were down 3-0. No, Max Fried comes in the first inning of game 2, gets shelled for 5 runs in 2 innings. As a postseason ERA of 22.50.
Ouch.
That not good. Anytime there are 4 digits there, not awesome. The bullpen came in and saved it. The Padres didn't score again. Braves end up putting up 4. Michael Harris comes in with a home run late. You know, all of a sudden you're down 1, thinking, hey, can we pull off a win here? But to be honest, I think there was better baseball to be watched other than the Braves trying to make their way through. You know, after had they finished San Diego, they go to LA. You've got 3 former MVPs and more than likely the current MVP in Shohei. You're not going to win that series, not with the lineup. I think the Padres-Dodgers is turning out to be everything that we had hoped for, which is must-see TV, excitement, and downright nastiness.
Well, we'll get to the Padres and the Dodgers. I look at I'm not an Atlanta Braves fan. You know that. Division rival. But given all of the injuries and everything that team has gone through, for them to have made the playoffs is an accomplishment in and of itself, looking at it from a neutral standpoint. And did they have an opportunity to play with the Padres? They had a very slim opportunity. Like you said, when Strider gives up, when Max gives up 5 earned runs, I'm thinking that game's going to be a blowout. I'm thinking that's going to be game 1 of the Padres and the Dodgers. It's going to be 10-1. And like you said, the bullpen comes in and shuts the Padres down. But the anemic offense, still, those gasps of life, it was a competitive game in the end. If you watched the final couple of innings, you thought there might be, this glimmer of hope. But like you said, would they have won game 3 against the Padres? Probably not. Would they have been a decent matchup for the Dodgers? Hell no.
Right.
So, there's always next year, and the Braves, again, if they're healthy, are going to be loaded, and they're going to be a threat, not only in the National League East, but, they may be a threat to the Phillies for the best record in not only the division, but in the National League. That leads us.
Yeah, I agree with you, but injuries don't fix bad bats.
Well, let's say that they're healthy, I think that there's a mentality there. There's a mentality when you are healthy and guys are going, and like you said, when Acuna goes, the rest of the team follows. There is a lot to be said for having to constantly change your lineup, having more and more people come in and out of the lineup, not having any continuity, and still being able to put together a winning team. But is that team going to be able to carry into the playoffs and have the momentum? No.
Nope.
You're going to have to manufacture runs, and the Braves did a lot of that. But if they're healthy, and they're probably going to make some moves in the offseason, but if they're healthy, why can't they be the team that, 2 years ago, hit all of those home runs and scored all of those runs? It's not like it's so much different a lineup. Yeah, they lost a couple of key guys, but, they still have the guy that, like you said, in Acuna, that starts at the top of that lineup and gets the lineup going. Look at the Mets and Lindor, and I don't want to get away from the Braves quite yet, but I'm just making this as an analogy. Part of the reason why the Braves have had so much success is that they trust Acuna, and he does what he's supposed to do. He hits the ball, he walks, he gets on base, he threatens the defense. When Lindor moved to the leadoff spot for the Mets after their terrible May, all of a sudden that team turned around. He embraced leading off. He started to walk. He was getting hits. And before you knew it, the Mets offense was on its way. So I don't see why the Braves couldn't do that in 2025.
They could. I think they could. And, what happened with Lindor was the same thing essentially that happened with the Braves when they put Acuna in that leadoff spot. It sets the tone. But I still think, listen, I firmly believe, I firmly believe, I guess that's a thought, I think. The Braves lost 2 key pieces in the offseason. They lost Ron Washington.
Yeah.
And they lost Eric Young, the second base coach. Ron Washington, one of the best leaders in baseball, the infield coach, always a positive vibe. Eric Young, also significant coach. These weren't just bodies standing in a dugout or standing on first base. These were significant pieces. Wash gets his shot again to coach the Angels, or to manage the Angels, to manage the Angels. He takes EY with him. I don't think that loss can be overstated enough. You get my point.
I do.
It was big, and there was a noticeable tone. I saw some things after. It might have been during the playoff series. Just looking at Matt Olson's bat position from last year to this year, where it's much more tilted. It's not as upright. He's now got a much longer swing, less compact swing. And even though his batting average went from 283 to 247, I don't know that that's a number people look at, but his slugging versus his OPS went from 993 to 790. He went 54 home runs down to 29. He set a Braves record last year.
Yeah.
Right? That's just not Acuna's hurt. There's something wrong there. I don't know what it is. I think part of it is the locker room, coaching staff. Braves have said they're bringing all their coaches back again next year, which I think is still a great thing, but you're missing two pieces. And they've got to get over those two pieces.
Fair enough. We will have more in-depth discussions on the Braves when we do our preseason podcast for the 2025 season. See all the moves.
See you in February.
Yes, see you in February. As we are recording this podcast, given the time, you are having a busy week, I'm having a busy week. The New York Metropolitans are playing the Philadelphia Phillies right now. It's the bottom of the sixth, and the bases are loaded with no outs. So if there are profanities exclaimed, it is authentic. It is because the New York Metropolitans are piling it on in Game 3 of this division series. And speaking of which, let's jump very quickly. Did you watch the end of the Milwaukee New York series where Pete Alonso hits the home run in the top of the ninth?
Yes. I did not watch the whole game. I find it difficult. Baseball's dead to me. But yes, as I see that there are happenings going on in the eighth inning, I flip it on, and lo and behold, Petey does it again, or the Mets do it again. The OMG Mets, not the Law Mets, came in and did it again. Holy shit. You want to talk about Uncle Mo momentum coming in. This is another team that we've talked about, comes in hot from a divisional series, comes in, I guess, limping to an extent, but comes in hot after a divisional series where it's, I think it's, actually that was a divisional series, but comes in hot. They have there's no downtrodden attitude to them as they get to games. This is very reminiscent of the Braves from years ago, where even if they're down going into the eighth and ninth inning, they're thinking in that dugout, we still got a shot. Let's go. Right. LFG, let's go. So, it didn't necessarily surprise me. I think there's an opportunity there for you.
Well, I'm ecstatic that Alonso got the opportunity to continue to play baseball in a Mets uniform. Again, there's no certainty in Major League Baseball, any professional sport, but Major League Baseball in particular. So don't know whether or not as a free agent he's going to come back to New York. He gets the additional at-bats. He gets the additional opportunities. He has capitalized on them. He hits what is an iconic home run in the top of the ninth for a New York Mets team that, like you said, has come back countless times, leads the league. I believe that they had 50, leading into that game, they had 56 come from behind wins, which means that they scored the winning runs in the eighth or the ninth inning. So, of course, I'm ecstatic and have screamed. I've watched it 1,000 times. One of the things that I love now about the internet, many things that I hate about the internet, but one of the things that I love is now they have these mashups where you have the broadcast from the national crew that's doing the game, then you have the home crew and the away crew on television, and then you have the home radio broadcast and the away radio broadcast. So you're seeing the same thing 6 or 7 different times with different broadcast crews. And I love those mashups. And of course, I watched that mashup for the Mets with Pete Alonso's home run maybe 8 or 9 times over the course of the last 96 hours. So here we are in the year of our Lord, 2024. It's the Phillies versus the Mets, the Padres versus the Dodgers, the Yankees versus the Kansas City Royals, and the Guardians versus the Tigers. So an AL Central matchup. Let's start with the one that you've already mentioned, the Los Angeles Dodgers versus the San Diego Padres. Now, that being a National League West division rivalry, you knew there was familiarity. There had been some bad blood throughout the course of the season, as there is pretty much every other team in the National League West, besides the Rockies, hates the Dodgers with a passion. And the only reason why the Rockies aren't in that same category is they're so bad. They're not even worth having a rivalry with. But everybody else, it's pretty heated. Give me your thoughts about the first 2 games, and where do you see that series going?
Oh, we got us some fun, my friend. We got us some fun. And even more fun, have you peeked over your shoulder to see what just happened?
What, in the Mets game? Yeah, I'm very disappointed in the fact that they did not get hits until Marte comes up and explodes. And here we go. 2 more runs. I'm not going to exclaim. I'm going to try to be professional during the course of this podcast. When it got to 2 outs, I was sweating a little bit, and here comes Marte. And my God, has Marte come up with some fucking clutch hits over the course of this last 40 or 50 games, because he was out, right? I'm sure you remember he was hurt. He comes back. Who knows if he's going to be the Marte that he was at the beginning of the season, particularly the Marte from last year. And he's just been on fire, man. He's been on fire.
And dude's 35, so good for him. Good for him.
Yep.
All right, so we got ourselves a good one. I saw a tweet, a teaser, if you will, clickbait to click on an Athletic article that said something to the effect of, today begins the beginning of the rest of Shohei Ohtani's career. What does that mean? He was stuck with the Angels of Anaheim and was never going to get to the playoffs.
Never.
He's now with not only a contender, but a team that has led the league in wins mostly for the past 5-7 years. A World Series champion with an asterisk. And I am definitely going to put an asterisk on the sterile cardboard cutout 2020 playoffs COVID series.
Agreed.
But you got 3 MVPs there, right? You got Ohtani, you got Mookie Betts, and you got Freddie Freeman. And they are batting back to back to back. You have one of the greatest players that we will have ever seen when it's all said and done. I hate to say it, but beyond Babe, I'm assuming.
Right.
And I think even baseball pundits are saying the same thing. If he gets back to pitching again like he was, Lord help us all. But there is no love lost there. Shohei comes in his postseason debut. He homers, gets 2 hits. LA wins 7-5. You're thinking, here we go. This could get ugly. And it did. It got ugly. It got ugly in game 2. To the point that Dodgers fans, as they are known to be, are not the most civilized of crowds.
No.
And start chucking things onto the field. And here's one thing that I forgot. As you look at that Padres team, left fielder, Mr. Profar, what is his first name? Jurickson Profar, he actually won 2 Little League World Series with Curacao. Were you aware?
Yes. He is a very capable baseball player. He was on their all-star team.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So he's the guy that kind of stirs the pot and then says, "Ooh, what me?" But the guy stirring the pot is Manny Machado. He's a chirper.
Yes.
And I have never really liked Manny Machado. I thought he was a punk when he signed his deal. I don't think he got traded. When he signed his deal with San Diego, chatting with a buddy of mine, he was like, "Good riddance. Enjoy rotting in San Diego." And he did for a few years until they got their act together and they built this team. And now all of a sudden they are where they should have been a few years ago. They get to the NLCS or NLDS last year, right?
Yes.
And lose to the Phillies. Is that what I'm thinking?
Yes.
So they get to the NLDS last year. They're here again. That's a bad team. And for those kids out there, bad meaning good. That is one bad team, and that is a team that is led by a chirper, Manny Machado. And it started getting fiery the other night when Jack Flaherty comes in and strikes him out, screams from the mound, and points to the dugout and says, "Sit the F down, you MFer."
Yes.
This was fun. This was entertainment. And then it goes even further where they still continue to chirp from the dugout in third base.
Yeah.
Flaherty's on the dugout. Manny's on third base. Madness ensues. Craziness ensues at one point in time. I read this today. I didn't see it. I tried to find a clip of it. Manny apparently threw a ball into the dugout, supposedly at Dave Roberts, the manager. Now, doesn't sound like it was with any force and it was with intent to hurt somebody, but it still happened. Manny at one point in time calls a players-only meeting in the dugout. Holy crap. This team is taking on the persona of one Manny Machado. And Tatis isn't helping. He's not hurting. There is swagger with this team. There is attitude with this team. And lo and behold, they come in and they win game 2. Not just win game 2. They beat the shit out of L.A. and go up, win 10-2 to take one at L.A. and take a 1-1 tie back to San Diego, the 90 miles or so that it is. So we got a good one. San Diego's pitching staff is solid. Joe Musgrove, Baby New Year, as I called him with his ears, did not make the NLCS roster. He went out in the Braves series with a click on his elbow. Not sure what the deal is there. Haven't really looked into it too much. But, yeah, we got a good one. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun one to watch.
What are your thoughts? San Diego or L.A.?
I think it's a matter of what L.A. shows up. And possibly even – and here's what I mean by that. L.A.'s got pitching issues. They have starting pitching issues. I don't think that they are at full they're definitely not at 100%. Who's the Rays pitcher that signed with the Dodgers or traded to the Dodgers, just went out? Pretty boy dude.
I can't remember.
Anyway. Yeah. Anyway, he gone.
Editor's note, Tyler Glasnow. They
had pitching issues before him. I think they traded for him at the deadline. Now he's gone. So they've got to get their pitching situated. Walker Buehler's back, if I'm not mistaken, for LA, which is a good thing. But he's been out most of the year, so he's just kind of getting back up to speed again. If the Dodgers can pull it together with their starting lineup, with their pitchers, and let's face it, everybody's hurt. Right? You don't get to October, play 162 plus games and not be hurt.
Exactly.
Braves are just hurt more than most. The question is, are you injured or are you hurt? And that's a famous Chipper Jones line, referring to J.D. Drew. J.D. Drew came in when he was playing with the Braves, and he missed a couple games, said he was hurt. And Chipper comes out during a press conference and said, you got to learn whether you're injured or whether you're just hurt, because everybody's hurt. So everybody's hurt at this point in time. I hate to say it, but I got the Dodgers. I don't think they take it in 4. I think it's going to go to 5. I think it's going to be tough, but if they can get moving, they could feasibly win the next two in San Diego.
Look, I can't argue with that because unfortunately the Dodgers are basically like one of those 1999 All-Star teams that you were able to put together when Major League Baseball video game finally lets you build your own players and you can basically build these bullshit teams. That's what they are in real life. And it's hard to pick against them. But I am going to pick against them for the reason that you just cited, and it's because of their pitching. I think San Diego has better pitching. I think now that they are at home with an opportunity to close out the series, I think they do. So they win in 4. You've got the Dodgers in 5. Let's move to the Mets and the Phillies. It is the bottom of the 7th. The Mets are up 4-0 in Game 3. Who do you have between the Mets and the Phillies? By the way, your favorite series out of all of these, to see two of your National League East rivals in a series against one another.
So baseball is dead to me as my Braves are done. But not really, because we got some excitement. But this series just sucks ass from my perspective. My wife wanted me to share that she is pulling for you and your Mets.
Awesome.
Because she is anti-Philly everything.
As well she should be.
Cowboys fan that she is.
Yeah.
I am anti-Phillies. I am anti-Braves. Or excuse me, anti-Mets. Not anti-Braves. But the Phillies are at least, the Mets are at least fun to watch. I dislike the Phillies so much I can taste it. The Mets I haven't had a chance to dislike over the past few years because they've been bad. So you just kind of laugh at it. They all Mets it again. So, from that perspective, I'm pulling from Mets. But I think they have momentum coming in. And it's the wild card series momentum that I was mentioning earlier. I think that if you've got that kind of high coming in, they, get into the playoffs in that epic Game 1 of the doubleheader on Monday. They win the wild card series with just fashion, right? When Pete hits that home run, they score 4 in the 9th to win the game. That's a lot of momentum coming into a division rival NLDS. So from that perspective, I like the Mets. And until I can be proved otherwise that wild card series winners have the advantage over division winners who have a bye, I'm going to probably pick the wild card series winner.
Well, let's keep in that theme because I don't even need to give you any analysis. I'm rooting for the Mets and I'm going to pick the Mets. But given what you just said, let's look at the American League and the fact that you've got Kansas City going into New York and winning, so they get a split, and then you've got Detroit going to Cleveland after they win their wild card series, and they get the split. Let's start with Kansas City and New York. Kansas City is a threat, I think, not only to New York, but to any team, but particularly to New York, who, in a strange way, even though they were always in first place, they were leading, going back and forth with the Orioles, but then they had kind of a comfortable lead, and then it seemed like a very pedestrian New York Yankees team. It didn't seem like they were the ballers that we have come to expect over the course of the last few seasons. And I think that this layoff, if it hurts a lot of teams, it certainly hurts the New York Yankees, who probably needed to have some momentum and to be able to gel coming into these playoffs. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're completely right. And, during the season, as we're getting into I think it might have been the All-Star break, I mentioned, how are the Orioles going to do? I said, well, it depends on the Yankees. And really depends on whether Judge and Soto can get the ball rolling. But I was wrong. They were already moving. It's the rest of the team that does seem very pedestrian, right? I think that the Royals and the 100-loss team last year come into the playoffs this year. You've got you cannot downplay enough, as I'm going to call him Ricky Bobby Witt Jr. Bobby Witt Jr., though he did not have a good game last night against the Yankees, the rest of the team did. They come up with a big 4-run fourth inning, take game 2 in New York. Again, it's a wild card series winning team that's now split. And you're split going into your home building for 2.
That's right. So
I don't know the environment at Kansas City. It's always bad. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs, that's their home field advantage. Apparently Mahomes was wanting Royals highlights during the game last night. But you're going to have excitement. It's playoff baseball, man. Places are going to be rocking. And if you come out big and you keep that building rocking, it's going to be tough to win.
Agreed.
And those other players those other 6 for the Yankees, I don't know. Stanton had a decent year, if I'm not mistaken, not a great year. I mean, that's all Soto and Judge. He had 27 home runs, batting .233, not a good year. Slug in 773, not a good year. Those are Matt Olson stats, which is not a good year.
Right.
Not for the caliber of player that you have. So it's Soto and Judge. Now, let's be honest. By stature and by ability, Judge is big enough to put the entire team on his back.
Yeah, he and Soto.
Yeah, Soto, littler guy, but one of the best hitters in the league, without question, year in and year out. He is playing him way to a $500 million contract. Good for him, as long as he stays out of my division. But the rest of the team, you don't know. I think they're just wild cards. They're no longer effing savages in the box, as Aaron Boone mentioned. I don't think they've got that swagger that they used to. They come in and they win the division, which is great, but are they built to win it? And more importantly, they're not hot enough to win it right now. You got to be hot to win it, as are wild card series winners. So coming back to KC, I think that I don't think the Yankees lose 2 there. I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going off of memory here and just visual memory, that stadium can take some home runs. It's not like right field in Yankee Stadium.
Right.
But I think you can hit the ball out of the park there. And if they get hot and start swinging the ball, I think they can get it done. If it goes 5, I think it's a coin flip. The also not very civilized fans in the Bronx are, well, maybe they are civilized because I got to pay $1,000 a ticket, but
it's true.
I digress. I think it's coin flip there, but I think that Kansas City does have an opportunity to get that done. You?
Well, look, I think Kansas City is going to be rocking. That is it. It is a traditional baseball city. This is not an expansion team. Like you were saying, they were great in the 80s. They had this renaissance about 8-10 years ago. They end up winning the World Series. From a financial standpoint, and still controversial, they deconstruct that team, and they have a 100-loss baseball team that is now playing the Yankees. And that goes back to the 80s as well. All of the rivalry they had with the Yankees from 30 years ago, 40 years ago. I think that place is going to be rocking. I think it's a very likable team. If you're a Kansas City Royals baseball fan and you've got all the same faces on the team that you saw last year lose 100 baseball games, and they're all young and they're enthusiastic and they've gelled, it's just a very likable team. Am I going to say that they're going to be able to take both games against the Yankees? No. So it's going to come down to, can Kansas City win Game 5 in New York. I think that they can, but like you, I think it is a literal coin flip as to whether or not they're going to be able to win Game 5 in Yankee Stadium. Who am I going to pick? Only because I don't like them, Brian. I'm going to pick the Kansas City Royals. I think the Yankees are probably a better bet to win the series, but I'm going to pick Kansas City. Having said that, let's go to the last series, one that is not getting a lot of fanfare, and probably reasonably so, because neither one of these teams anyone thought were going to be in the playoffs. The Tigers and the Guardians. And the Tigers coming in completely off of everybody's radar, winning their wild card series, and now splitting the series with the Guardians. They're going back to Detroit. How raucous is Detroit going to be to host a playoff series for the first time in, I believe, 22 years?
That's a good possibility. I don't know the numbers, but that sounds about right. It's been a minute or 17. You've got, and this is the story when they went down to Houston. You got AJ Hinch, former manager of the Astros with Trash Can Gate.
Yep.
Who was out of baseball, gets picked up by Detroit Tigers, and he has got them playing winning baseball right now. That place is going to be rocking. You've got them going up against a team who I don't think anybody had them on the radar to win it. Hall of Fame manager Tito, Red Sox. Guardians.
He might be coming back to baseball next year.
He is coming back to baseball anyway.
Editor's note, Terry Francona.
Let's skip over that. And Tito retires. He cites health issues. They bring in Stephen Vogt. I believe it's Vogt, not Voigt. Stephen Vogt, who was a backup catcher for the Braves before he finally retired. Is one of these guys that always seemed to be a manager, or seemed destined to be manager at some point in time. He brought a levity to a situation. One of his locker room gags is he used to dress up like a football referee in these very tight football referee clothings and do a skit in the locker room, chuck everybody up, lighten the mood. That came out a couple of times when he was with the Braves. But you've got a first-year manager that's in there, and again, you just got him going. Two teams that were not supposed to be there, Guardians and the Tigers. The Guardians a few years ago were a really, really, really good AAA team. Tito comes in, turns them around. Dodgers, actually, Kansas City was a really good AAA team last year. But you got them playing good baseball. They win the division. What does that mean? They get 4 days of a bye.
Yeah.
5 days of a bye after the season's over, right? Monday through Thursday. First game's on Friday. I guess 4 days of a bye. What's the Thursday? First game Saturday. So 5 days of a bye. And I'll put my money on the wild card series winner, who's now split on the road, coming back to their house. Detroit is going to be rocking. Detroit fans, man. They are diehard. It is blue collar. They are going to be absolutely on fire in Detroit for this series. Cleveland's got to get their shit going. Shane Bieber goes down, their ace at the beginning, May, June, plus or minus. Bybee comes in and pitches well, but AJ Hinch knows how to win in October. I'll take the Tigers.
I'm going to give you an analogy. It's a college basketball. I could do this for college football. I could probably do it in a couple of other sports, but this one's easy. Kelvin Sampson right now is in Houston, and he turned that program, that Phi Slamma Jamma program from the early 1980s, revives it. But if you look at his history, he's been successful everywhere that he's gone. Unfortunately, He has not escaped NCAA rule violations everywhere he's gone, and so he bounced around. I think he had a 2-year ban, if I'm not mistaken, after his stint at Oklahoma, and he went and coached in the pros, and then came back to college at Houston and has turned them into a perennial top 5 team. That's A.J. Hinch. He can simply coach the kids in baseball. Now, does that mean he's the most ethical person in the world? No, it doesn't. But he's always going to find a place because he does what every team wants, and that's win, right? He doesn't win the right way, but he wins. And I don't think that there's any more analysis needed. If I have to take the Tigers versus the Guardians based on what I've seen, you've got to go with the Tigers. And I think the Tigers are actually going to sweep them in Detroit. I think that they get an early lead in those games, and that stadium is going to be like Philadelphia Stadium when Philly has a lead, even if it's in the 4th inning. Everybody's standing, everybody's screaming. It's an extremely difficult environment to play in. So that leaves us. Now we're going to go, let's do some predictions now. Let's do some speculating. If we've got the Yankees, I want it to be the Royals. I'm going to say the Royals. The Royals versus the Tigers, and you can have the Yankees versus the Tigers. But who do you think comes out in these contests between the Royals and the Tigers, or between the Yankees and the Tigers?
I think it is the winner of the Yankees-Kansas City series. And I'm going to lean towards the I'm going to lean towards Kansas City in that division series. Your Mets just scored a few more, my friend. I'm going to lean towards the Royals in that series against the Yankees. I'm going to go Yankees Tigers, and I'm taking KC. I'm sorry, my bad. I'm taking KC Detroit, and I'm taking the Royals to go to the series.
So I'm doing the same. I'm a little frustrated at the haphazard, as Jason would say, the lollygagging base running that ran us into an out after Iglesias' hit. But I am ecstatic that Iglesias got that hit, and now it is a 7-0 Met lead in Game 3 against the Phillies in the bottom of the 7th with 1 out to go. We still have an out. We still get another at bat.
Go Lollygaggers.
So I'm going to agree with you. I've got Kansas City taking on the Tigers, and I think Kansas City wins. I think you see this Kansas City team going back to the World Series for the first time since, I believe it was 2016, when they won the World Series. That leaves us to the National League, where we've got my Metropolitans. I'm going to assume that you're on board with that, versus either San Diego or L.A. I'm taking San Diego. Mets versus the Dodgers for you. Who do you got?
I'm going to go Mets San Diego as well. Not Mets Dodgers. And because strictly I'm so torn, Patrick. I'm so torn. I'm torn between my friendship and wanting you to succeed, and torn to, as a hated rival of the New York Metropolitans, seeing them go Lol Mets again. So I don't know. I'm gonna, and I can't go for the Phillies. I'm gonna abstain from picking that series, if I may, because I just can't do it. But I'll go Mets. Fine, I'll go Mets. Mets San Diego. I think I hate to say it. I think San Diego can pull it off. I think it's going to be a really good series. I think it comes down to pitching. And when I say pitching, it comes down to the Mets bullpen. Can you keep them from scoring? Can Maton stop doing Maton things?
Agreed 100%. And I like the fact that we just had that Faustian bargain that you had within your own psyche as to whether or not you could pick between the Phillies and the Mets, and whether or not you could then pick the Mets. That was great. We got that all recorded. Yes, yep. In my mind, I'm going to pick the Mets. I'm going to pick the Mets to beat the Phillies. I'm going to pick the Mets to beat the San Diego Padres to get revenge from our loss from a couple of years ago when they bounced us from the playoffs. And I agree with you. It's going to come down to whether or not the Mets bullpen can actually perform and can get outs in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning. And namely the 8th and the 9th, because, as you just mentioned, one of the guys who had some success getting outs during their 25-5 run, Phil Maton, he has not had a good playoff so far. He's looked shaky. Thankfully, he did get the outs that he needed to get for the New York Metropolitans in Philadelphia. It wasn't clean. It wasn't without base runners. I believe when he got out of the inning, I think he'd given up a run. It was men on first and third. So the point being, it's going to come down to the Mets bullpen. But not only am I picking the Mets to win the World Series, it's to get revenge on the last two teams that have foiled the New York Mets, the San Diego Padres, who, like I just said, bounced the Mets 2 years ago, and the last team that the New York Mets lost to in the World Series, the Kansas City Royals. Revenge, in the immortal words of Phil Anselmo. I'm getting revenge again. The New York Mets, your 2024 World Series champions. How would that taste to you, Brian?
It would taste like a big pile of dog shit, to be frank. But I'm rooting for you. I'm absolutely rooting for you. And if you look back I'm going to say if that happens, 3 of the last 5 World Series champions all coming from said National League East.
Which would be amazing.
Resume. So as much as it pains me and hurts me, I don't want to see Philly win a series at all. Not at all. I can stomach the Mets winning a series due to our friendship and wanting to feel good for you. I'm not going to like it, but I'll do it. So I'd expect nothing less. I think they got a shot, without a question. If they keep their mojo, if they keep staying hot, if they keep playing with what they're playing with right now and keep their heads in the right space, and they don't law Mets it, they just play good, clean baseball, and they can get it done. Manaea pitched great. He just got pulled. I believe he was the one who you said had to tell whether he was fiddling with his glove.
No, that's actually that's Severino, but
Severino, gotcha.
Manaea, yeah, I mean, what an outing in a pivotal playoff game. You know, him not having the greatest outings in his last starts. You know, the man loves New York because he's pitched extremely well in New York and has carried that into this game, pitching 7 innings, right? 7 full innings and giving up a hit in the top of the 8th and getting yanked. But good for him, man. Good for him.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's here's what we have across the board. We had fun baseball in October. You know, it was the Tigers Guardians went scoreless. There was a no-no on record, I think. Not on record officially, but on pace for a no-no at one point. But there's no score going into the 9th inning.
Right.
We got fun baseball going on. If you are a baseball fan and not just a fan of a team, it's awesome. If you are a fan of a team, listeners, and maybe a baseball fan, but more of a fan of your team, watch baseball. We have some phenomenal matchups going on right now. Maton just came in your bottom of the 8th, up 6-0. So hopefully that will continue. We've got Dodgers, LA tonight, starting at 9:00. I despise 9:00 games and the West Coast. From your perspective, all good. But we got really good baseball going on, and I think it's going to be a phenomenal October. I hope you are right from your perspective. I hope your Metropolitans can pull it out for you, and you can do your laps around the field for the next however long, because you finally gotten one of your teams to win, because your Vols lost to the Hogs, and that should not have happened.
Agreed.
A bad loss. Not as bad as Vandy losing to Alabama, but that was a bad loss. So listen, man, best of luck with it. I'm gonna be watching. I'm gonna be rooting for you, not necessarily for the Mets. So I can't have that on my conscience, as you can imagine.
Well, I appreciate that
about it. I won't be vocal.
Well,
but the missus is pulling for you.
I appreciate you coming on and doing the podcast with me again. It's been a great 2024 season. I know you and I will be texting back and forth as the series progresses, regardless of the teams that are in the playoffs. And I look forward to doing this again in early February of 2025.
Absolutely, my friend. Good luck with it the rest of the season. I'll see you in February.
Act 2, Epilogue. Once again, I was wrong.
Once again, I was wrong. The Yankees roll into Kansas City and win both games, quieting the Kansas City crowd with early runs. The fact that Kansas City scored one run in each one of those games probably didn't help. The Dodgers win in 5, and their pitching holds San Diego to exactly 0 runs in the last 2 games. And today, the Detroit Tigers will have to go back to Cleveland to face the Guardians in a do-or-die Game 5. The one thing that I was right about, your New York Metropolitans. They finish off the Philadelphia Phillies, and they will travel to Los Angeles, California in a best-of-7 against the Dodgers to determine who will go to the World Series. So frankly, I don't give a damn that I wasn't right about any of my other predictions, as long as the one prediction, the New York Metropolitans win the World Series, comes true. This is Why I Don't Vote, a podcast.